Let's go, people. Let's go. It's Prognosis negative time.
Hi, this is Eric.
Hello, everybody. This is Sean.
And this is Carl.
Welcome back. It's our second biannual appearance on this feed, Prognosis Negative. This is episode 47, because these don't come out frequently these days, so you have to cherish these. I think this might be the first Alien movie. Oh, well, no. I was going to say we did Prey, but that's Predator adjacent. It's the first Alien movie we've done on this podcast. Wait, there's something lingering in my mind about... Oh, me and Kat, I can't remember if this is Sci-Fi Party Line or this podcast. Maybe it's SFPL. But we actually recorded a podcast on the movie Life with Jake Gyllenhaal in the same vehicle together. And it's a really great podcast, or weird. But I haven't been able to find it. It must be on SFPL.
For those of you that heard him say in the car together, he does literally mean in the car together.
They recorded, yes, one time. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize this, but if you go see a movie with Eric, he'll make you podcast about it in the car afterwards.
Hold on. I only started doing that really 12 months ago. And when me and Kat did this was years ago, whenever year Life came out, which is a while back now. I think it was like 2015 or something. And yeah, that wasn't meant to be a concept. That was just because there was just literally no other way we could do it in a short span of time from when we saw the movie. And we saw the movie together. So yeah. But yeah, what Sean's talking about is a more recent thing where it's become more mandatory. But the only reason I said Life, which is not a great movie, but Life is like a redo of the original Alien a little bit. Not exactly, not beat for beat, but it's very obvious. And speaking of things like Alien Romulus, a movie that I had heard was going to come out. It's not just with Alien, the franchise, but it's with most things when it comes to new movies these days for me, except for certain exceptions. Like, I'll hear about some project and I really won't think about it very much until literally the week it comes out. And I think this is better for my health that I am more this way now. So I didn't have any type of like, oh, is it going to be good? I had no expectations. Is this going to revive the franchise? Is this going to, be another nail in the coffin? I had like no thoughts at all, other than because I didn't see it opening night. I was already starting to hear some positive buzz, even though I wasn't looking for any information. And I really didn't know too much except for, I remember I had seen the teaser trailer months ago, and there was like 2 or 3 significant things in that trailer that I didn't want to know, but what can you do? So that's kind of the only knowledge I went in with to this movie. Oh, you guys, obviously, because it's not out yet, you guys went to go see it. So what motivated you guys to go see it for yourselves?
Sean?
I was on vacation in Florida, visiting my mom while my dad was off on vacation with his friends. And during that time, it was my birthday. So I got to go to the movies for my birthday.
This is great.
Nice.
And we went to the cinemas in Mariana. When I say that, that's the literal... No, I'm sorry, we did not. We went all the way to Panama City Beach, to the Regal. And apparently in this one, you can look up the times of the movies on your phone, which my mom can do, but you can't purchase tickets on the phone. I don't know what's up with that, but anyway. So, you purchase the tickets from the person at the concession stand. So I'm like, 2 tickets for Alien Romulus at $4.05 and a bucket of popcorn and soda, a bag of candy and soda, all that. $75 it turned out to.
What? Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to freak out now, but maybe later.
Don't forget, this is Panama City Beach. But anyway, go on.
Florida, yeah.
Right.
So my mom, she's got COPD and she's got fibromyalgia. She can barely walk. Well, the handicap seats, to access those, as I got handicap seats, they're at the back of the theater. You have to cross a long hallway, get in an elevator, go up a floor, cross another long hallway, and then go in the theater door, and then, actually the seats are right there, so I'll give them that. It was like I'm not like a pro handy, I don't know what you call those people that protest.
Accessibility experts. Yes.
But it kind of pissed me off. Like, this isn't really, and it was half that, half, Mom, maybe you should just get a wheelchair. Anyway, we go and sit.
No, this story is why people listen to Prognosis Negative.
We go and sit down in the seats, and I'm like, wait a minute, these aren't regular seats. And then my mom asks me, what is this button here? And I look over, and she's got one, and I've got one, actually. They're lit up. It says water or no water. And then I realized the reason the tickets were $75, or the tickets and the snacks were $75 is because she told me the time of one of those Regal, what is it called? RDX theaters? RX?
Yeah, the extra sound effects ones.
4D something or other. They had, and so before the movie started, of course, we were treated to a barrage of previews. All of them action movies. All of them, of course, show the action scenes, and our chairs are going wild. And then it's in between previews when you have that silent period with the green thing on the screen. And my mom goes, as though there's nobody else in the room, she goes, "This can't be good for seniors." And then I'm like, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. This is all ruined. Another day lost. But fortunately, once the movie started, it was pretty cool. And this movie used everything. It used the water effects. It used the sound. It used the shuddering. It was awesome.
Wait, when you say water effects, I'm not sure if you mean like, does it spray you or does it have water inside it like a waterbed? I don't know.
Both.
Both?
Okay, so it sprays you like if you ever go to this is basically copied. Feels like it was copied from that, but Alien Counter in Disney World in Futureland,
Okay.
or no?
I haven't been to that, but I've been to other theme parks that had something like that.
It was not a fine spray, but it wasn't a spurt. It wasn't. It was probably like.
So you're saying it had that and like water cushion, so to speak, that could kind of sway and move and vibrate?
Yes.
Wow. I didn't know that it was all that involved.
And when it was over, I expected my mom to complain the whole goddamn time home, like, "Oh, this hurts." That didn't say nothing. I'm just gonna say these things, instead of using that chair, that sharper image chair at the airport, that's like $10 for a 5-minute massage. Don't use that. Go to one of these movies. That'll. Because I'm telling you, on the way out, my mom took off like Speedy Gonzalez to the elevator and down the thing. I'm like, well, that's all you need to do. Just get into shape. Is just
so you're saying the seats healed her. The seats have cured your mom.
Hallelujah.
Unbelievable.
No, this story turned out more interesting than I thought. And now it makes me wonder because when I saw Deadpool Wolverine the second time, I was not in that type of theater, but I remember the theater I went to used to have those types of seats. And I was wondering, like, but these are new seats because they remodeled the place. But that movie at that theater felt like the chair was intentionally vibrating at certain times, but maybe it's just the sound system.
No, that was the Tingler. Scream for your lives.
But now it makes me wonder, though, what that movie would be like in that theater in Panama City, because it was almost 4D with regular seats for some reason. It wasn't like that the first time I saw it in a different theater, but I don't know. I don't know what was going on, but it was cool.
But I'm just going to say, for this product that I'm talking about, it might be okay for the oldsters if you want to have grandma, experience one more thing before the end of life.
But does it like spray you like when they do like the acid blood and stuff?
Yes, that's exactly what it did. It. Oh God, there was
the scene where they pull the freezing fluid out of the wall.
Absolutely, yes. All of these.
And then there's the scene when they're shoving the prod into the alien's shell.
Yes.
I mean, all of these are prime moments. I can imagine. I didn't get it.
But I wonder though, like if you have to see Avatar: Way of Water, do you have to wear like a swimsuit? That's
no,
fine.
Please, no. But I will tell you this. This will get to the movie proper. When we left that theater and we were waiting for the elevator to come up and get us, I said to my mom, well, that was better than I thought it would be. And she goes, me too. Now, if you are a politician running for office and you happen to be a horror sci-fi movie and you get that endorsement from Sharon Homrig, flaunt that shit, because that means it's a good movie.
Sounds like high praise.
Well, why isn't she on the podcast right now?
And then the next day, I'm like, Ma, I brought this movie on Blu-ray. What? Let's watch Hereditary. So, yeah.
All right.
Is that true? Yes, that's true.
Okay. Jeez.
But she didn't remember that she'd already seen it with me. Because she herself is I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. What are we doing now?
Go ahead, Carl.
Right. So, Romulus.
Yes.
I'm a fan of Aliens. Well, I've been a fan of Aliens films for a while, air quote, and I try to see them when they come out. So there have been so many and over so many years. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go back again because I intentionally watched no previews, nothing. I didn't want to know anything about it. They said they were coming back. All right, let's do this again. So I was, as a loyal Aliens viewer, I just queued up and said, all right, let's see where they're going to take me this time. So
yeah,
that's kind of how it went.
After I saw the movie, I was looking at the franchise filmography of all the Alien or Alien adjacent, and when I say Alien adjacent, I'm talking about AVP. But if you include those into the mix, in our lifetimes, the three of us, typically there's never longer than a 5 or at the longest 7-minute wait until another Alien related movie. And obviously there's some that occur quicker than that, but at the longest, our entire lifetimes, we've never gone 7 years without some new Alien movie.
Yes.
Wow.
That is, you said 5 to 7 minutes, which I thought was hilarious. But
I did?
Yes, but it is 5 to 7 years. You're correct. But
it's usually 5 or 7, and then there's a couple that came sooner. But
they have been a fixture in our lives. So yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, I remember in grade school seeing a kid having the Alien shell poster on his wall, going, wow, I wonder what that movie is about. So yes, they've been ubiquitous my whole life. There've been Alien movies.
Yeah, in early 87, no, actually it was Christmas 87. It wasn't the first, but it was one of the very first blockbuster rentals I ever saw at home. Was Aliens, 1986.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And that was my first viewing. I did not see it at the movies, and it actually did terrify me the first time.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying. They all are. The first two specifically.
Yeah, the first two definitely.
My parents had the first Alien movie on Betamax.
Nice.
And let me watch it. And it absolutely terrified me, especially the part where John Hurt gets the alien, the face hugger gets him. Oh, that terrified me.
Oh, yes. The first time I ever saw an Alien movie was the first Alien, mid-'80s. And yes, that I forgot what that was like the very first time. That was by far I think that was the scariest moment for me.
Well, and the chestburster scene was pretty bad too.
But I have more memories of, now that you bring it up, I have more first time memories of that first time going to the egg chamber and what happened. Wow. Okay. So Alien Romulus. Did you guys like Ridley Scott's return with Covenant and before that Prometheus? Like, I don't know. Did you? I don't know exactly where you. I know a little bit because we were talking about Prometheus a tiny bit earlier. But I mean, did you like it?
Yes.
Did you guys enjoy them? Were you like, oh, I seen Prometheus, I can't wait for the next one, or like, oh, Covenant's better than Prometheus, or the other way around?
I will tell you, I liked them. Well, no, I liked Prometheus when it first came out because we went to see it in the theater. I didn't like Covenant that much because, well, we got it from like Redbox or something because we like that. We love Redbox. I just recently ordered them though on Blu-ray because I want to watch them again and review them. I think they're worthy of that, and I don't think that Ridley Scott really did a bad job. Ridley Scott, in my opinion, never does a bad job. Even Gladiator was really good.
I would try to watch any of the Alien movies on 4K if you can. Only 3 and 4 are not yet available, but the rest you can get some way in 4K. And no, I'm not talking about AVP. And then, Carl, what are your thoughts on the two most recent preceding Romulus?
Truth be told, I have not really liked any of the Aliens movies since Aliens 1986.
Oh dear, that's dark.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand kind of, but oh my.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite post-Alien sequel? And we're not talking about Romulus.
Favorite post-Alien scene? That's hard. They are all the same to me in different ways. They all felt incomplete to me, and that's what the real problem is. After Aliens 3, Resurrection, Prometheus, Covenant, they all feel like distorted, exaggerated pieces of Alien or Aliens or of that genre.
Okay.
But they didn't create like the complete experience for me. And that I found quite frustrating over all of the years.
So I guess my opinion...
Put a pin in that. You'll get it later.
Yeah. I guess my opinion of that time, or the sequels post-Aliens, pre-Romulus, it's the same as yours, Carl, except add 2 stars to whatever you gave each movie, or a star and a half. Because whereas you didn't really like them all post-Aliens, I liked them all, lowercase l. And I like each of them for different reasons. But then each of them had their own individual, unique issues that kept me from loving them individually. But I really do like them. And a lot of the post-Aliens movies, again, I'm not talking about AVP. Unless I specifically say AVP, I'm not talking about that. Like, it doesn't exist.
Good.
But I enjoy rewatching most all of the Alien sequels. And Covenant, when I first saw it, I was like, yeah, I like it, but I wanted it to be more yada, yada, yada. But as the years have gone by, it has aged like a decent wine for me. So I've rewatched Prometheus so many times now, and it always gets a little bit better every time I watch it. So yeah,
I found the newer ones visually quite stunning. So
Absolutely.
You want to talk about the new two, Prometheus and Covenant. They are visually quite impressive. So, you can feel the budget, you can feel them taking full advantage of the effects and all that kind of stuff in them. So there is a resolution and a vibrancy visually to them that is really quite impressive. But, again, they all felt incomplete.
Another thought I have about the 2 most recent ones, especially when you watch some of the behind the features about the making of the recent Ridley Scott ones, is it reminds me of watching the special features for the Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy by Peter Jackson, where when you watch that stuff, you go, oh my gosh, all the backstory and concept design and all the stuff they put into the sets and the costumes and like the unseen backstory, it's not explained in the actual movie. Like Prometheus and Covenant come off like that, except unlike Lord of the Rings, it doesn't all materialize in an amazing way for the viewer, even though they put all this crazy thought
effort into it.
Yeah.
I find that the saddest of all when I watch the behind the scenes of a movie that is not one of my favorites. I'm like, look at all these people. They're putting it. They were trying so hard. They really thought this was going to be something, and it just. So.
And the last thing I'll say about Prometheus that I noticed the most recent time I watched it, which was right after Romulus. A funny thing about it, I started to realize is it originally came out during the 3D heyday, post Avatar, and I mean it was a pretty cool 3D movie. You didn't have to see it in 3D, but it was pretty cool, especially in IMAX. But watching it now on television, there's a few moments that are like, remember when you would watch like Friday the 13th 3D on television and you see the visual gags that are happening, but you're watching them in 2D?
Mm-hmm.
There's certain scenes in Prometheus that you're like, oh, that was obviously for the 3D, but I never realized that until now. But anyway.
So I went in, I'm not going to say skeptical for this movie. I'm just going to say my expectations have been tremendously tempered over the years. And I just watched the Alien movie to say, all right, what are you guys going to bring me? What piece of the story are you going to take me, or where are you guys going to take me this time? So that's, again, I knew it was coming out. I hadn't made any major plans. I saw it the week after opening, so I was like, I'll get to it. And that's sort of how I went into it.
Yeah, I definitely came in super tempered. As I said, I wasn't coming in like, I'm waiting to see this. I also saw it almost a week after it came out, not zero expectations, knowing that this could be horrible. But yeah.
I agree with both of you. No expectations whatsoever. In fact, I thought I would have more merit laughing at how much my mother hated it, but it turns out it was pretty damn good. So,
and one last thing before we get finally, I know I'm edging this out too much, but just before we get into the meat and potatoes of the movie, could one of you tell me what happened in the movie prior to Rain waking up? Because I actually got there late and I didn't see what happened prior to her.
What room did she wake up in?
She woke up like where she lives, like on the colony planet. So what happened before that? In the movie?
Really? You didn't see before that? Okay. Well, the movie starts in okay. So right out of the box, as I'm watching this with my tempered expectation, it starts with many of the visual cues of the first two Alien movies. So this movie starts, Starfield, Starfield, single ship traveling along the Starfield. They zoom in on what looks like a dead ship, right? So the ship it's a little, the ship's out there, dead ship floating along the Starfield. So again, this is how it starts. And I'm watching this and already I'm going, man, this feels kind of right. This feels like what the original ones were, but I'm not going to get excited. So So the panic goes to Starfield. They zoom in on the what looks kind of like a derelict ship. And then it wakes up with, again, all of the cool-ass 1973 computer technology, relays and big old buttons and hums and whatnot. Turns out it is it's a drone. It's a drone. It's an automated ship. And it is heading toward what appears to be some sort of wreckage out in space. So this drone ship is flying into the wreckage, which looks like, I guess, the wreckage of a destroyed ship or something like that. It's a debris field. And it closes in on what appears to be a meteor in the debris field. It locks onto the meteor, or the thing that's in the debris field. Computers fire up, ship turns around, and then it goes. It flies off, and so it has retrieved something from the destroyed asteroid field. Well, the ship gets back to, I don't know, HQ or whatever. Well, I don't know where it is, but some research facility. They pull the meteor out, and what is in the stone. They have, once again, a classic laser, like the one they had at the beginning of Aliens, that cut open the door for Ripley's ship. They got one of the same ones, old-timey, firing into it. They cut into it, and of course, they have salvaged what looks like a meteor, but is actually the encased, entombed body of one of the xenomorphs, the full aliens. And this bank of scientists or researchers or whatever have it. And so they are, taking it into their facility, their station facility, to inspect what it is that they have retrieved. And that's how it starts. So that is what, they got the thing that they pulled out of the debris field, and then we cut to the girl's dream and her waking up.
See, that's interesting, because I wonder if it's almost better not having seen the beginning, because you get some information later in the movie about what happened on the abandoned space station ship.
And so that is my assumption, that where they took the stone was the research station that all of this stuff happened in. But, again, when you watch it again, the visual clues will have you tearing up a little, because it just touchstone after touchstone, it takes you back to the first. You're like, okay.
No, that does sound cool, but I still wonder if it's better to come in as I did on the planet colony, because hearing about what happened, while it does sound cool and I can't wait to actually watch the opening of the movie,
it's simple.
It reminds me of watching the special edition version of Aliens versus the original theatrical, which is, if someone had never seen Aliens before, I recommend watching the theatrical first, and then if you like it, go back and watch the extended.
Really? Okay.
For this reason, in the extended, they explain so much in the added material that it takes away a lot of the surprises and discovery that you get if you watch the traditional theatrical version. But if you've already seen it, it's cool to see like the added, embellishments and whatnot.
All right. Well, that's it. So that's
because it almost kind of worked better for me not having that information you told me as I was watching the movie.
Right. Well, it's all a whopping like 3 minutes, so it's not that much. But yeah.
But it does sound cool though.
It's pretty. I think you'll like it. And again, it's going to take you back. So that's how it starts.
I think
you're going to say something, Sean.
I think that it's important that you opened with a talk about Prometheus and Alien Covenant, as well, of course, as Aliens and those other two along the line. But I really, really appreciate, and the cynical ones would call this fan service. But you know what? Is it really fan service when it's really only going to be like 15% of the population that gets it? But there's a ton of fan service in it, and I loved probably 90% of it. It's so finely crafted, and it's so pretty visually. The set design, or whatever you want to call it, production design. Not sure what they call it. So yeah, I like the callback in that sense, in an aesthetic sense.
The era of this movie is set between Alien and Alien.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's important. Yes.
So the technological aesthetic. I mean, again, we're coming from Prometheus and a Covenant era with touch screens and lacquered consoles and all. So to go back and see the noisy ticker tape, booting relay machines that we started with Alien, again, they really do match the whole visual aesthetic from the first two movies. And again, seeing as it's been almost 40 years, it was really remarkable to go back to that place and to see that they so respectfully went there again.
Now, I pretty much agree with what both of you have said about this, about the aesthetic, etc. I hate to get in the weeds on this further, but I have to, I guess, because I was born this way. But so I saw it. I know what you're talking about. That element was amazing in this movie. And as soon as I went back, I kind of already thought this with Prometheus, but even more so when I recently started watching Covenant, because I've only seen Covenant one time all the way through for some reason, not like Prometheus where I've seen it a million times. And as soon as I started watching Covenant after coming home from seeing Romulus, it jumped out at me because, like you said, it has that very futuristic, designed by Apple appearance to all their screen readouts and everything. And it's bothersome in the chronology of the series because Prometheus and Covenant are supposed to take place before the original Alien movie.
Yeah, well, we're not even gonna go there. I mean,
it's kind of like talking about Strange New Worlds aesthetic, and then thinking the original series is yet to come. Yeah. Now, I know how you can explain it in headcanon because it's what I had to do in order to be able to wake up in the morning. The way you could explain it in the Aliens universe is, what's his name? Was it Wayland that Pierce played? You could say, well, the first ship was practically like his private yacht, and he was like a Google Air or whatever. And I don't mean Google, I mean like Googleplex Air.
Yeah.
So that explains Prometheus, and then Covenant, I guess, was just really well funded by the company. Whereas obviously the original Alien, they're just space truckers, and then these people, just work. Basically, they're factory workers. So of course things are going to be looking industrial, right. And of course Aliens is the military, and even though the military present day has futuristic tech, a whole lot of aesthetically everything looks like it's from like the Korean War and stuff. So okay, that's my headcanon.
That's a good try.
It's still annoying though.
I'll take it, but I just say let it go. Let it go.
Because I definitely like when any franchise or movie does this correctly, where they just get the look down, all the screen readouts and everything.
And there's something else that's present in this movie that was only present in the first two films, I think. No, I take that back. The first two films and Prometheus and Alien Covenant is that's the omniscient presence of what's the name of the? I was gonna say TT Wakatani. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, that's it. And I like this anti-capitalist message that if you work for the big company, you're basically an indentured servant until you're, 65 years old, and then you can retire. And I like the idea that we've got a group of people here that are like, fuck you to that. We're going to go out there. We're going to get our own gas. We're going to get our own rocket. And we're going to, get the fuck out of there. And according to someone that I talked to, apparently there was a big backlash about the fact that everybody in the cast was so young. And
I heard that a little bit in some corners.
When I heard that, I'm like, okay, does that mean that they wanted to make it like a slasher movie? And I think they did a little bit, but I appreciated the fact of why they were there. When normally that's easier to relate to than, hey, we're having a party, and then the lights go out and there's no power, and all of a sudden Susie's getting stabbed in the kitchen.
I think the age made sense for the concept of the movie because, again, they are all factory workers essentially, and also, of course, there's older factory workers. Even though the life expectancy probably isn't great, but it would take like a youthful attitude to even attempt to try to leave the planet or the colony. So it kind of makes sense in the context of the story. But I could go on a whole other road talking about that angle, like the political angle, and thankfully the movie doesn't belabor that or anything. But that definitely gives food for thought.
Well, if we back up again, so I watched the movie on the edge of my seat from start to the finish, partially because of the tension that they were building, but partially because, as I've said, pretty much since 1986, I have not been thrilled with the Aliens movie. So I'm watching this, waiting for them to mess it up. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. But I have been, my expectations have been so tempered from the past that as I am watching this movie, I'm like, okay, when's the other shoe going to drop? When are they going to do something weird? When is it going to? And so again, right, even up until this point, right, and we're just getting started. We're basically we meet the kids, and they're coming up with their heist plan in the their quarters or whatnot. Even up to this point, I'm watching and I'm going, okay, well, they got the aesthetic right. The heist that they are about to engage in makes conceptual sense given the context of the characters, right? Because again, Eric and I, we're always going off about this, but if you're going to be telling us this story, the pieces need to fit together in a way that makes sense.
Yes.
And it's so easy. Look, you're putting all this money in the budget, all this highlight. It's so easy just to make the plot make sense that, for them to try and do that right, I'm hanging on the edge and see like, oh, how are they going to mess this up? But even up until this point, okay, I'm invested with the kids. 6 more years in the labor camp. That's not a winner. They got nothing to lose. Here's a big opportunity for them to try to make it big. Okay, I can see why this would be worth it. So again, piece by piece, I'm sitting on the edge because I'm waiting for other shoe to drop for this to be a mediocre Aliens movie. And so I'm watching it, and stuff is actually fitting together, and things are making sense, and the motivation behind the characters makes sense. So yeah, that's where we are so far.
And on the planet, just seeing where they live, like the interiors of the domiciles, and then the street level, reminded me in a good way of Corbin Dallas's place in Fifth Element. Obviously the aesthetic in Blade Runner 82, all well and good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we meet Andy early on with Rain, and not just at the beginning, but throughout the movie, Andy. I was like, why is he so eerie in the way he's meant to be, like in that uncanny valley kind of way? Because after Fassbender in the previous 2 films, I couldn't imagine another person taking on the role of a synthetic being in the Alien series, because I just thought he was so remarkable at the time. But Andy's different. I mean, obviously, but I mean, the reason why Andy makes me feel more uneasy than the Fassbender character, because the Fassbender character, the way he's creepy as a synthetic, he kind of reminds you of like Hal from 2001, but like in human form. Yeah. Whereas Andy doesn't remind me of Hal. Andy reminds me of Joel Osment in the movie AI. And I know a lot of people...
That's good. That works.
Don't reminisce much about the movie AI.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have fond memories of it. But that's another movie that as I've revisited it creeps me out more and more. I think off the top of my head, AI has to be the Steven Spielberg movie that makes me feel more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that or Schindler's List, but for 2 totally different reasons.
Yeah.
But in terms of creepiness, eeriness, I think AI deserves a rewatch by many people because I think it's a lot better than people think it is.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yes.
Andy was channeling that kid in AI, except, a little bit older, and that was freaking me out.
AI is so sad. Obviously, I've seen it a bunch of times, but it's just, I gotta buck up to watch it because it's just so sad. But so I agree. And the other interesting thing about Andy is throughout the Alien series, the android has been villain, hero, villain, villain. And so you don't know where it's going to be in this episode. And I was afraid that the resolution of that was going to be too obvious and simple. Right? You know, oh, he's going to be, obviously he's going to be the hero, or he's going to turn to be the villain. Well, you know, we saw how they did something really interesting as to whether he was the hero or whether he was the villain in this one. Gotta admit, I have always had issues with upgrades, just spontaneous updates to my software or whatever. And I'm feeling uneasy about what is going to happen if I click accept for, you know, those automatic updates. It resonated strongly that a system that I had known and trusted all of a sudden starts acting weird after an update. Yeah, that was totally believable, totally plausible. And how they kept moving us back and forth as to whether he was hero or villain. I think that was a novel and a solid and a unique way to do that in this episode. I mean, this movie. So
I think it's an Oscar worthy performance.
It was great.
I mean,
he won't be nominated for that.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But yeah, he was awesome. And after he was quote unquote upgraded, you could tell from the actor when he was sort of facing a moral quandary that his program didn't agree with, you know?
Yep.
But nevertheless, his program, you know, took control, because that's how it is. Because at the end of the day, he's a robot.
Machine. Yep.
Yeah. He was brilliant. I think, and I'm so sorry, I didn't write these actors' names down, but I think first of all, wait a minute. I have no problems with anybody in this movie.
Yeah.
Andy and Rain. We have to talk about Rain. I thought she was great. She was relatable. Maybe it's because I didn't spend a lot of time looking at her. I don't know, but yeah, she did a great job. I really appreciated her in this.
Oh yeah, there's not many to choose from, but she's one of my favorite protagonists of the Alien, of the different main protagonists we've had in the Alien movies. Again, not many to choose from, but I really enjoyed her also. I had never seen her in anything before, except she might have been in something I saw, but I didn't know who she was. But she reminded me of a younger Kristen Stewart, and I was a big fan of Kristen Stewart before, during, and after Twilight, so I felt like Kristen Stewart was kind of like reincarnated, and I was in a happy place on that. And that's Kaylee Spaney,
I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Andy, of course, was David
Johnson,
kind of like a Dutch or Nordic spelling for Johnson.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal. I have a feeling I'm 50-50 whenever I say this. I have a feeling we're going to start seeing him in a lot more roles in things.
I hope so.
I hope so. He's fantastic. And like I said, I didn't think anyone could surpass the impact that Fassbender made on me in Prometheus. But no, for artificial life, humanoids, Andy's going up to like the top of my list as one of my favorites. I almost pretty much loved everything about his character and what they did with him and how he performed it. It was absolutely top notch.
Yep. Yep. So again, we're watching they've decided on what the heist is going to be, and they jump in their I don't know, it was stolen ship. I don't know where they get a whole ship from when they're hanging out like that, but they jump on their ship and they go up to invest.
I think it's something that maybe they're able to use now and then on a regular
basis. It's the dinghy. It's like a dinghy, a space dinghy. Mm-hmm. A dinghy is a little paddle boat.
Okay.
You know, like in Jaws, like, hey, what are you kids doing? And then the shark kills a guy. Yeah. It's a dinghy.
I looked at it as something that they have regular access to. Kind of like, not exactly, but like Andor with the vehicle he gets around with in the series, early in the series.
I agree with that. It seems like that would be like a public service. Like, give us X dollars and we'll be your dinghy up to your spaceship.
The scene where they're ascending, again, there are these tasteful tips of the hat back to Alien and Aliens that just keep popping up. I mean, it's just, you're talking about fan service. It's everywhere. So obviously the scene where, versus them descending onto the planet with aliens and the chaos and the noise and the kinetics that you feel from that, they're ascending in this one, but they even, have the affirmative, thumbs up, and it's really, just these moments you're like, oh. But anyway, during the ascension, there's the guy that decides to stand up. Again, Hudson. He decides to stand up, and the ship starts accelerating and going up, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he pulls the lighter out, and it's got that crazy flame. Does anyone know what I didn't quite get the significance of why the flame was huge and why the cigarette just sears up like that when he's going up? Does anyone know what that was supposed to signify? Was that supposed to be?
I don't know. I'm not a scientific person, but usually if I go to YouTube and look it up on MythBusters, they've probably done that.
I thought it had something to do.
I'll bet you $1 million.
I thought it had something to do with zero G's, but also because I used to screw around with lighters all the time in high school, especially. And,
well, you were in high school, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah, there was things you could do with regular lighters, different kind of alterations you could do to make them do different things with their flame. Mm-hmm. So I took this as like the zero G version of screwing around with a lighter.
Okay, all right. Well, I didn't know if they were trying to tell us something about gravity or time or oxygen. Or I couldn't figure out, because it was such a big deal, him standing there with a crazy flame and then the cigarette just going up like that when he was smoking it during the ascent. So I was like, what? Anyway, so I didn't know. Anyway, so yeah, so they, they go up now. All right, the only issue that I had, the only beef, if, this film is crisply consistent across many, many things. So I am going to, let this go. But the one thing I had an issue with is, nobody saw an entire station hurtling towards the rings of the planet that they were. No kids in a crate managed to identify an entire station hurtling towards the rings of their planet. Nobody else saw that. All right, so I will let that go. I will let it go that they somehow managed to identify that, and nobody else saw that.
My only argument to that, and that didn't bother me that much, but my only argument to that would be when we had the first eclipse that we had recently in Texas, because the second one was a true solar eclipse, but the one we had 6 months prior was I think it was an annular solar eclipse. Yeah, slightly different, not as dramatic, but still a full eclipse, just less dramatic. You don't get the total darkness. Anyway, when I was watching the first one, of course I was anticipating it, had all the alarms set. I was sitting there looking for it, had my goggles on and everything, and it was happening. And as it was happening, I was just looking around where I was, and there was just like a lady dressed for work who was just kind of running late and just doing her regular business. And I almost wanted to yell at her, hey, there's an eclipse literally happening right now. Like it's happening right now. And it wasn't total darkness, but it was just it felt like an overcast day because of the eclipse. Yeah. And she paid it no mind. She didn't look up. It was just another regular day. So, sure. I think that's just what people are doing, especially when they're busy and don't have leisure time.
All right,
I guess
I'll let it slide. I look again. There's so much of this stuff, but that it wasn't a small vessel. I just hey, it looks like a huge station hurtling that way. But anyway,
I don't have many quibbles with this movie. I have minor nitpicks, but one of my little nitpicks, and I wasn't sure because at some point near the end, I think they said something like there's 20,000 colonists or something down the planet. And when they took off, as you said, to me, the colony looked huge, like really huge. And 20,000 seemed like I wasn't expecting a number that small, but I don't know. Were those figures correct? Am I remembering correctly? Did that seem weird?
I don't remember the count.
I don't remember either. I don't know.
They said something like 20K, and it just sounded way too small to me.
Well,
the way it looked when they took off. And I get it. It's probably machinery, industrial, but...
Yeah, and, dense for mining purposes. They're all lumped together in one spot. But yeah, I didn't notice that. But so anyway, so now the kids are aboard the big ship. They're breaking in. And again, the reason why Rain and Andy are there makes sense. They're breaking into this big, station, and the only key is a Windows 3.1 Android they happen to have wandering around. It has the access key in it still. That makes sense. So yeah, so now we got Andy and the boys trying to break into the ship, and Rain is of course sitting safely back in the ship because this is in and out, and we're going to be done. This is going to be simple. One simple job, just to pick up these cryo chambers, and we'll be set. That's how all the heists start, right? It's just in and out. Couldn't be simpler. What could go wrong?
So this is, once we get to the ship and dock, this is where we start to have a lot of horror tropes start to come up. Where, especially if you've seen Aliens movies before, I kind of feel like that character in the original Scream who's talking about all the things that always happen in horror movies. Like, things start to happen, if you're familiar with the franchise, you kind of know ahead of time, you can already start to tell, like, your brain is telling you, oh, this is what's probably going to go wrong. This is what's probably going to go wrong.
We'll split up to cover more ground.
And like, oh my gosh, talk about Chekhov's guns. And I mean, they did this in the original movies, the first two, but every time they kind of mentioned anything that in other movies it would just be world building, it was basically a Chekhov's gun situation, because almost anything that they highlighted early on in the movie, they all came back to play a role. Mm-hmm. Like, of course, like the gravity situation.
Everything did.
Yeah, and there was much more than that. And by and large, even though these are tropey things, I was mostly fine with all of this stuff. And this movie, like the originals, starts off with a slow burn in terms of real calamity and action and shenanigans. It's a slow burn. And I'm fine with that. Probably you guys were fine with it because people our age and older, we grew up with this. But I could see, because, okay, I like this movie overall, obviously, but I see a little bit to the counter opinion. Like, I see some of the things that they say, I at least recognize it. So certainly if you're more into fast pace, I want things to start happening, I could see how this could be annoying to certain audiences. And similar thing happened with Prometheus, except that probably felt worse. I mean, the wait for things to get really interesting. Prometheus was worse. I don't know. I'm assuming you guys more or less agree with me on this part.
Well,
yes.
The quick answer is yes. The quick answer is yes. This movie follows a very particular formulaic series of steps. It is, matches what we saw with Alien and Aliens. And so, again, now that being said, why it took them 40 years to simply repeat the pattern that seemed to work so well with the first two, I don't quite understand. But so, on one hand, you're absolutely right. This movie does not break ground in terms of any novel beats in terms of story or whatnot. It is clearly, what we have seen in the other movies. But it was such a respectful and interesting take on what we knew was going to have to happen that I'm giving it all of the bonus points. Because we know it's going to happen, right? Oh, we'll just be in and out. we know what's going to happen. Hey, what's that sound? We know what's going to happen. So the fact that they did not stray away from the track that this train has been on for such a long time, I can see how some might have found that confining, but the only problem is in over almost 40 years, they haven't done this, with aliens. And I'm like, what are y'all doing all this time? So again, it was comforting to go back to this and to create, in essence, a simple motivating story and storyline that is very familiar. It is something that we've seen before, but yet they've put just enough, seasoning dash on it to keep it interesting. So, yeah.
When you say seasoning dash, do you mean like fan service?
That's part of it. Yes.
Okay.
That is so. Absolutely, it is the respectful tip of the hat to the classics, which is the fan service part of it. There are little things I was like, oh, they did that. Well, right. The acid gravity scene. I mean, come on. I wasn't quite expecting that.
Cool.
Right?
That's so cool, though.
It was unexpected and interesting, right?
Yes.
You're kind of like, oh, come on. But it was actually the kind of interesting peril that we had not experienced before.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. Yes.
So
yes.
That's what I'm talking about. And like Eric was talking about, everything that we saw had significance. Now, again, this is not something that you can take for granted with most modern sci-fi.
No, wait.
Just throwing stuff out there and they never come back to it. It's not important, or they do it in a lame way. This movie set out some very specific breadcrumbs that were subtly placed, but then when the payoff came in the movie, it made sense in a way that once again shows you they really, really thought about how they were structuring things. That is not something you can take for granted. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them in this movie that every little detail comes back and is like, oh, that's why they were doing that. Oh, that's what that means. Oh, this is why they were doing that. So, I mean, it is well constructed in terms of that.
Well, of course I agree with you on this, Carl. But at the same time, yeah, I think people do really take this for granted too much. In a lot of movies, many are bad, or people like them, but the reason I don't like them is because what you said, like things don't pay off, don't make sense, don't connect. And then when they do connect, people just act like, oh, of course, because that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So people seem indifferent either way, which of course bothers me. This reminds me of, this is what I've always said about the newer DC movies, about why when Wonder Woman, the first one with Gal Gadot, when it came out, why I liked it so much was not because it was a great movie per se, but it was the first of the modern DC movies where at least the story made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just waiting for DC to just release a movie with a story that made sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just because it cleared that bar,
yeah.
I liked it so much more than
Yeah.
the other DC movies that came before it and many that came after it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So these basic things, again, right? I'm watching the whole movie on the edge of my seat, like, how are they going to mess this up? How are they going to screw this up? And beat after beat, each little thing seemed to fall in this place, seemed to to make sense. There were payoffs with the things that we saw. And again, particularly you and me, Eric, when we watch these things, we've been watching these kind of things for so long, we see patterns really quick, early on. Oh, I know where that's going. Oh, I know where that's going.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And with the breadcrumbs that they put out, there were a ton of them in this movie, but with as many of them as there were, the payoff was novel, right? I mean, again, like with the intermittent gravity, I knew that was coming back. I was like,
Yes,
no, there's that. I
absolutely.
knew that was coming back, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
but dodging acid blobs. What didn't expect that? Did not expect the use of that. Okay, again, when we first see the android being repaired, right? The kid's been kicking him down there, and we see her reboot him there on the ground. She pulls his little memory stick out, looks at the memory stick, puts the memory stick back in. This is yet another breadcrumb, right? They're showing us how the technology works, where the parts are, and they significantly bring that back in a way that is meaningful to the plot, that's interesting. I mean, that is key to understanding what happens to him later on. Piece after piece like that, they 100%. Really do make a lot of sense out of little these pieces that they drop. So it's just
100%. Also, if anyone's watched Doctor Who, classic or especially new, the episodes that they do right in Doctor Who are very much like this as well, where they start laying out the pieces of things that seem innocuous that play a key role later. Now, I love the vomit scene also, of course, very novel. Feels like it could be in or out of a modern Alien video game. Like, you could just imagine that level. My only qualm, which is a personal thing, is that when the 0G acid blood was floating around, to me, it looked like 0G floating vomit. Mm-hmm. And that was the only thing that was horrifying to me, because that was disgusting. The
fact that it eats your face, no problem with that. But if it was vomit, that's just gross.
But it looked like floating vomit in 0G, and I was like, oh my God, that looks so horrible.
I see. Well, either way, a unique peril.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What do we think about our crew?
Our crew?
We've talked about Andy already, and of course Rain. We have presumably Rain's ex, who reminds me of Buffy's college boyfriend. Anyone watch that series?
I can see him. I don't remember his character's name.
Tyler is, of course.
He's a young dashing action man.
He was the one that was kind of like the football player, right? It was doing the military stuff.
Yeah, he'd be Flash Gordon or Ian Chesterton, if you think about Doctor Who. He's the action man of the group.
Right.
The girl who looks Asian, Eileen Wu, who played Navarro. Mm-hmm. She kind of seemed like, if this was a horror movie, she's going to be the throwaway character.
We since she was going to be the first one to go.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. Well, what do we think about Bjorn, though? Because he always have like the racist or backwards character. He has reasons. I mean, they explain his reasons, but he's obviously super prejudiced against synthetics. But he's, if this was about race, he's a bit over the top. If this was about racial bigotry, he's almost cartoonish, or at least that's how I felt.
Well, he's fulfilling a very specific role, right? Just like you said, if we take this back to Scream, there are very particular roles that we have to fill in this story, and we know they're disposable folks. We know, given the sensitivity of having androids around, which has been highlighted in all of the Alien movies, everybody else seemed pretty cool with Andy being around. So if that's the case, all the kids are down with it and think the androids are fine. There's got to be that guy. There's got to be that one guy just to to offset things.
I was fine with it. I just wish it was a little bit more nuanced. Just a little bit.
I know.
But not a deal breaker. No. Just, I get it. It would have been nice if you had to think a little bit to see him implying his prejudice rather than him completely wear it on his sleeve.
And I'll give you, again, we know very clearly that some of these characters are performing very particular roles. Now, come on. Yeah. As soon as we saw that Kay was pregnant, and cradling her belly, and she's
Yeah.
going, "Oh, I can't wait for my child to be the first to see the sun." We all knew what was going to happen. We all knew what was going to happen. So again, they're
True, but
fulfilling very particular roles, very particular spots in this. But yes,
yeah, and then there is the sister to the Action Man, who was the pregnant one.
Kay.
Is it? Yeah, Cave.
Oh, wait. I know what I was going to say. I'm so sorry, Eric.
Yeah,
So sorry. My brain is working weird right now. You mentioned the sister to the... This is the thing. The pregnant girl
Yeah.
and her boyfriend, I did not realize that they were brother and sister. I thought they were a couple.
Hold on.
And I
Wait,
think...
she didn't have a... Oh, when you said her boyfriend, you were talking about Ray.
Lane's boyfriend.
I thought you were talking about the pregnant one.
Right, yeah, I know.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's okay, I got confused.
He's putting it together. Right, yes.
Okay.
Yes. There was some confusion as to who was Kay's. I agree. Because I was like, what? Who? What? So that took me a second to figure things out because I thought maybe Kay and the other guy... I couldn't figure out what Kay was doing there, honestly. So, yes, there was a moment where I thought maybe they were...
I got it for whatever. I mean, I was slightly confused for a little while, but it worked out for me. I wasn't... I mean, they said it clearly enough when they were,
But with the relationship, there's also this wonderful scene where she's on the other side of one of those doors and everybody else with Andy is on the other side. And Andy can just open the door at any time and let her in. It doesn't work, though. He doesn't do it. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes against Andy, and Andy says, well, this is for your own good.
Yeah. And once again, the carefully laid breadcrumb regarding what's the other guy's name? The biased guy.
Tyler?
Bjorn's issue, right? They sneak it in there. Well, Bjorn's mother, was killed by an android when it was doing the math in the situation. And then here we go. Precisely the scene. And again, not only, a little heavy-handed, but still, I'll let it slide because once again, we needed to see where Andy was on the update spectrum of good evil at that point. We needed to know exactly where he was. And he was not, he's no longer Forrest Gump, Andy. He is the new Windows version of it. Of
Andy. Like the movie Awakenings with the
yes,
Robert De Niro.
And
holy smoke, when Carl's talking about these breadcrumbs, 100% on the same page as Carl. I am.
Oh, me too. Yes, me too.
Yeah. And I'm mostly fine with all these things. It was just because, like you said, they're going by the model, the established format of these types of stories, whether it's horror or alien, and I'm fine with that. Maybe it's because I'm on the spectrum of updates myself, because I'm thinking about me in the movie. Hell no, I'm not opening that door for nothing.
Yeah.
But I understand neurotypicals can be. So I guess I just have to let that slide because maybe I have a little bit of update issues myself.
Yeah.
But the pregnant one,
Kay.
When I saw her in this movie, the actress, right away I was like, wait a second. Isn't that the girl from the first Mark Wahlberg Transformer movie? And I was like, why haven't I seen her in so long? Because, I know that happens with a lot of random actors in the Michael Bay Transformer movies. Like, you never see them again. But she seemed like she'd be somebody. I didn't realize she also played Dora the Explorer in the live-action movie, which I haven't seen yet, but I am going to give it a look-see one of these days. Not because I'm a big fan or anything. I don't know. I got to check it out. But, she was good. And, I probably fell for the bait. Because, like you said, they start setting up all these breadcrumbs. And they start kind of happening and following through in a way that makes sense. So it seemed like she was going to inject herself and then get back to the colony and then hopefully they wouldn't set up like a Romulus Requiem sequel situation, because that sounds bad on paper.
Yeah.
But it kind of seemed like that's where it was obviously going when we were getting into the final act.
Sure.
But of course, that's not where it goes.
Thankfully.
Thankfully, because that wouldn't have been a good idea, and that would have been too predictable, or if that's what would have actually happened. But I thought she did good. I mean, yeah, you're right. She had played a purpose. She had a limited meaning in the grand scheme of things. But I actually thought she was pretty good. She's probably my favorite of the side characters, even for what she was able to do.
All right. Other interesting things, so again, as we go through the story, they're on the station. They find the cryopods. They don't have enough fuel in the cryopods, so they just have to go down the hall because there's some replacement canisters. They just have to go down the hall through a partially open door inside of a lab to pick them up, and then everything will be fine because it's just a small little detour, and then they can get back. So, of course, and again, right, stuff makes sense when they're pulling the cryopods out of the mad scientist lab, right? Of course, they were used to preserve and to freeze the alien, the alien. What do you call them? The facehugger things? To freeze them in stasis. They weren't just in a closet somewhere. They just weren't just hanging around. Yeah, if you're going to go here to get the frozen, to get the cryo fuel, have it doing something interesting. Have it set mess up. So, of course, when you pull the cryo fuel out of the wall, then in a truly interestingly dramatic way, we start to see the aliens starting to heat up, pods starting to heat up, door slams shut with the alarm. Totally makes sense, right? You got some kind of a breach in the biolab. All of a sudden, the aliens are heating up. Now, again, got a robot rebooting. Okay, that's not helpful, but okay, all of this stuff, convenient but plausible, and it built a real sense of tension in the moment. How long is this Windows update gonna take? Why can't we get this door open? Did you hear something in the water? I mean, these are things we have seen before, but again, plausibly in an interesting way, building the tension. I was impressed. I just bought it in terms of the predicament that the boys found themselves in right there was interesting, and it was sufficiently tense to bring the girls out of the ship. They're running over there. I got to get in there to figure out what's going on. And the door is locked, and the boys are freaking out again. Random water in there again, like in all aliens movies. For some reason, everything's got to be like knee deep in water for some reason. But okay, there's water in the lab. So that was building a good tense scene of heightened stress in a way that was not forced. So again, this is a train track we've seen before, but they just made it interesting, which is not easy. Clearly, we haven't seen a whole lot of it. They managed to do it well, though. So this is a good scene. There's good stuff happening here.
No, all I can say is agree on everything you just said about that scene. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it was. I mean, again, I was just shocked at how well executed all of that happened. So that was fun.
Yeah, it was a good way to kick things off because that's when things started happening. The old synth, Rook.
Yes. Ash Rook. Mm-hmm, yes.
Right. Because at first I thought, this has to be Ash. Like it's supposed to be the same one that we saw in the original movie. But then, of course, after I thought about it, no, that doesn't make sense.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So then the fact that it was just one that looked similar. Yeah. It did bother me that it was damaged in a way that seemed just like Ash and Bishop later. Because that made it confusing. Because that in my brain was like a cue, like this is still Ash.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not. So that was just distracting in my brain. And I'm fine with this Rook thing. this is if I have an issue with this movie, and it doesn't break the movie for me or anything, but I thought at this point in 2024 we had finally started to master the recreation of people from the past or de-aging.
I know what he's going to say.
No, I'm just saying, because there have been some very impressive, mostly in the newer Marvel movies, of showing younger versions of actors. And I know he's deceased.
You know what? No.
Yeah.
I know the legal stuff about it. Like, they had to get permission from his family. But a year and a half from now, 2 years, once this film goes away from theaters, I think it's still in theaters here anyway, and it's into the zeitgeist, which is downloads and physical media, for me anyway, physical media. Nobody's going to remember that. That's a non-member Barry, if you will.
I think what'll happen, or for most people, not me, who saw this movie, is, I've watched young millennials and Gen Zers watch Tron Legacy and watch Rogue One, and because they're unfamiliar with the source material, when these CGI characters who couldn't exist appear, it doesn't really bump them like the way it might bump me, because they don't really know that. Oh my gosh, Grand Moff Tarkin,
Peter Cushing.
I always want to say Piers Anthony instead of Peter Cushing, which makes no sense. But a lot of them don't even know who Peter Cushing is. They don't even know. I mean, these people have watched the movie. They don't know A New Hope and everything. So they're not bumped in that way. Like, oh, isn't he dead? I mean, like the actor. But the only thing that they get is like, something seems off about that person, but they don't really know. So yeah, for most people, it's not that cumbersome. But for me, just because there's been good examples of this done in recent years, and even by amateurs on social media all the time, that's the only thing that bothered me.
So you are less than impressed with the deepfake technology, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because even though they're obviously not going to have real Ian Holm or de-aged Ian Holm, there's, I think, many ways you could do it. Like, for instance, I just happened to watch this little bit of the making of Aliens before we did this, and they were explaining that, they needed that little scene, actually Alien 3, they needed that little scene where Bishop comes back, and they had made, the prosthetic to use in Alien 3 for him to have that conversation with Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
And when they saw it, they were like, oh no, this is horrible. Like, this is not good. Like, this is not, passing muster. Like, it just, this is a poor representation, this puppet we made. So then they made the decision to make it look all beat up and scarred, and like, the fake flesh is coming off. Good idea, because then it just kind of makes sense in the movie Alien 3 to have it all jacked up anyway. So it kind of, there could have been so many, if you couldn't get the perfect deepfake, there's so many other ways I can imagine in my head where you could have done it, like partial CGI, partial practical, just for that little bit. But it's not a deal breaker. It's just, if I had to pick a least favorite thing in Romulus for me, that was it. If they made a special edition of this movie 20 years from now, that's the one change I would suggest.
Improving the deepfake is what you're saying.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
It was not the newest version of that I have seen. I was able to let it go because, well, he's an old version of the android that they had, from the previous movie. So he was busted up, and it was an old version of it. And I said, all right, that's good enough. But yes, I did note that the deepfake was not spectacular.
Well, what I'm saying is, what they should have done is, because I'm assuming they had like a real actor who they did mocap on, and then they put on the deepfake. What they should have done is had like a prosthetic humanoid puppet and mocap that, and then put the deepfake on top. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To make its movements not look so hyper real, like its facial movements. I mean, some kind of combination of that, I think, would have worked better. Because his face looked too perfect, like his skin and everything, his complexion, looked way too perfect.
yeah. Well, I'll let it slide, but I also noticed it. But yeah, it didn't bother me to that degree.
It's my one least favorite thing in the movie, but it's fine. It's fine.
All right.
So what else, Sean? You got anything?
I have nothing else.
Elevator shaft situation. I thought that also worked out well. Now, I get it. It's a massive space station. But when I saw how tall and how long that shaft was, Carl's going to understand. I could not help but think about the turbo.
Wait, are you talking to me personally, Eric, or are you talking about the movie? I don't know. Sometimes
I'm talking about the movie, but you're not going to understand the reference I'm about to say.
See, now he's like all defensive about it, but usually it's whatever.
No, I'm talking about the movie, but when I saw that super high elevator shaft, I could not help but think about the ridiculous turbo lift shaft in Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. Because if anyone knows that movie, it's a whole TARDIS situation where for some reason it's bigger on the inside. Doesn't make any sense. But okay, fine. It's a huge space station. I was just having weird Final Frontier flashbacks. But anyway, the whole setup of what went down in that corridor as they were trying to escape, and the whole losing the gravity and the elevator and the way it all worked out. Okay, fine. There was the convenient Chekhov's gun hanging by the shoulder strap. Okay, fine. But overall, though, just the whole, like, I'm trying to picture like the storyboarding of that whole situation. Very well done. Very well done. I mean, the whole thing start to finish and how it played out and the drama that ensued just in that elevator shaft escape, etc. I thought that was very well done.
All right.
Oh, okay. Trying to think if there's anything else before we get to the elephant in the room.
Well, when folks make these kind of action films, I just want to say I agree with you, Eric, there. I got you back on that. When folks try to make these kind of action films, one of the common problems is they make them a series of happenings versus a crescendoing set of moments. In other words, you said it felt storyboarded, well story. I felt like I knew where they were and where they were going and what they were doing from one scene to the next. I knew where they were going. I knew why this person was over there. I knew what they were trying to get to. It is possible to have made isolated action moments that would not have had an emotional connection or would not have told a story. They just were these obstacles that just pop up and they have to solve them. But as you watch it, they managed to connect things together in a continuous. You could tell where people were going, what the problems were, what the breakdowns were, and so it made the action bigger and better because it had context and it had it had a real story connecting all of the pieces together. So a lot was going on, right? You're talking about the shaft issue, but I mean, just every moment leading up to that, you knew where everybody was and what they were doing. What's his name? Tyler, right? The scene where he sees the egg lodged up in the wall, and he's got his electrical prod, and he and Kay are standing there going, "What's that? What is that?" All right, well, so he goes poking at prodding at it with the little electric rod. Now, again, if you want a true callback to a classic Aliens movie, then this would be probably the best example of going back to Covenant and the need for serpentine, because when you fall down under a bag of acid and it starts to drip on you, roll away. Just roll out from immediately under it. Don't stand there going, hey, this stuff is kind of like eating through my arm. This seems like a bad scene. Roll away. Don't just sit there. So anyway, he prods the thing with the electrical prod, and he just chooses to stand under the rain of acid before he's killed. But again, that is a callback to Serpentine from Covenant. So all you had to do was run to the left or run to the right, and you could have been out of it once again. A respectful tip of the hat to classic alien movies.
I didn't know that's where you were going. So you set me up like the writer. Like, okay, this is going to be important later, but not in the way I expect. I thought you were going to say something about the video game Alien Isolation. I've never played the video game, but I heard
I've played it. I know what you're talking. Yes.
Well, because a lot of people describe this movie as like Alien's greatest hits, because you can see little bits and pieces from all the mainline Alien movies, but they also, people said that it's that plus some elements from the video game Alien Isolation in particular.
That's funny.
And I'm told those like cattle prods were borrowed. The concept of them was borrowed from that video game.
Well, they're so respectful to elements of all the previous, the histories. It would not surprise me one bit that they actually did pull it from that.
However, I'm fine with most of the Easter eggs and member berries, as people like to say. The majority of them were fine for me. One that was a little bit lazy because it was literally, someone wrote that in the screenplay. Oh yeah, like these are assault rifles, like the Space Marines use. Okay. I guess you just had to say that. Like that was too low hanging fruit as far as making callbacks. We can't win them all.
Yeah.
But
I agree. I was like, yeah, we know. So all right.
Didn't have to say it,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, no, it's all good. I was gonna say something else before we got to the weird elephant baby in the room.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Oh, again, hearing you talk about some of the things you just talked about, Carl, I really do think there's a segment of cinephiles and a segment of everyday moviegoers that, when you were talking about how everything comes back to play a part, to be important, to understand where they are in the ship. There's so many modern action movies where you have no idea, like the layout of the ship or how the internal workings are connected, or the engine room or the hangar bay. There's so many modern action, like you said, they're just a series of events and calamities that come up. No, this is all completely thought out, visually and textually. And I do think there's a segment of cinephiles and a segment of movie normies who both take it for granted for different reasons. The cinephiles go, oh yeah, duh, because it's like so obvious, like this is going to be to that and da-da-da-da. So they just dismiss it as like, yeah, you're doing it right, but it's so like level one. And then you have the normies who just don't even notice when they're missing that cohesion versus when they have it. They just go with, was that a cool spectacle or not? So I think I understand some of the people who have seen this movie that I see on social media who come from one of those two groups who just go, yeah, it was all right, nothing special, or I don't understand the hype. Like, I think it's because, people take these fundamentals far too much for granted because they seem to be so rare nowadays.
And that's what I find the most frustrating and confusing, because you would think these things were foundational. You would think these things are important and basic, and it's so rare that we're seeing it now.
Oh, you reminded me, because keeping it back on Aliens, you reminded me, like I said, of all the mainline Alien movies, I like them all, but they all have something that bugs me about them. Mm-hmm. And Alien 3, there's a lot I like about the movie, a heck of a lot I like about it. But one of its issues for me, and probably many others, and me and Carl probably know like the behind the scenes, what was going on, I understand. But still, there's so much good about that movie, but it feels like you said, Carl, like you'll have scenes and it's like, what does this connect to?
Mm-hmm.
Or they mentioned this, why do we not get an explanation later? And you and I know behind the scenes what was happening with Alien 3, but just talking about the final product, that's what ruins that movie, because there's so many good elements, but it doesn't feel like you got the complete story.
Yeah. It's true. Okay,
so now apparently it's happened like in all the mainline Alien movies. There's always like a surprise fourth act. I didn't realize this until
we should talk about this. Yes,
until a video told me about this earlier today. I didn't realize it happened basically in every mainline Alien movie in some kind of way. So once we got off the ship, were you guys in your heads like, for sure there's going to be another like epilogue act, or this is the end of the movie? When we got
epilogue act, like in Resurrection.
Well, like in all of them, basically.
Yeah.
But
I was hoping for a Cameron double tap, but I was not sure. I was like, they wouldn't do that. They've got everything right up until this point. I think it's all right. I would be happy if this is where it goes. And then they once again.
See, in this moment, I was of two minds about it. Part of me was like, it's fine. We can just end it here. It's good. Because once the epilogue started to unfold, then I started to think, I understand all the callbacks to the series that we've already seen, but as it was starting, the final epilogue, and we started to see what was going on, I thought, oh no, this is starting to feel too much like the original Alien for the final act.
Yeah.
And so I was afraid it was going to jump the shark. And while some of it went how I was expecting, obviously that in total was not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah. They were on the track, and I know where this is going to go, but they kept it interesting, and for them to once again an homage to the original, 1 and 2, how things ended, and yet still keep it interesting and give it its own little novel spin. I was really impressed. It was, again, it felt familiar, but it also felt fresh.
Now, Sean, do you remember the end of Alien Resurrection, the fourth one, the last with Sigourney Weaver?
A little bit. I remember it was in a ship, and there was this baby that the queen alien gave birth to, and it was like all white, and it ended up being sucked out of the ship.
That part was cool, the sucking. But
yeah,
did you have any other?
That's what I always say, anyway. Yeah.
Did you have any other thoughts about that scene at the time or after seeing it? The creature in the end of Resurrection.
At the end of Resurrection,
what we just spoke about.
Oh, okay. I know what he's doing. I think that Eric is straight baiting me.
I'm not, but go ahead and continue.
Okay, what are you trying to tell me to talk about?
What you just described, the scene that you remember. Did you have any thoughts about it at the time or afterward? Because I did. I don't know if you did.
I did, of course. It was scary for me. It was kind of thrilling because at the end of it, that movie is a sci-fi action movie. But,
Well, for me, the premise of what was happening that you described.
Thank God I said the right thing. I didn't know if I.
No, for me, the premise of what you described, that was okay, whatever. But just the actual appearance of the thing, in Resurrection, that I did not like at all. It felt, I know it was supposed to be, a spectacle, alarming, kind of disgusting. I get that part. It just didn't look right to me. And it almost looked unintentionally comical to me. And that was my one least favorite thing about that movie, was just what it looked like. The idea was whatever, but and so that was the issue for me. I will just say in this movie, Romulus, that was not an issue.
Yeah.
That was not an issue. Talking about the appearance.
Yeah. And I mean, again, we're getting back to the effects of that era and what different thing they were trying to do with that alien hybrid at the time. So yeah, the effects were not fantastic, and it did look kind of bizarre. But
it wasn't the effects as much as it was the design of it. I didn't like.
Yeah, well, I agree with that too.
But that's Resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
This was different when they started to reveal what the thing was, because she had the birth or whatever, and then the thing
after post injection,
right, and then it fell into the cargo bay, and so I already knew, oh boy, like, what are we going to see? I don't know exactly, because something similar happened in Prometheus, obviously Resurrection, but those were different outcomes in terms of progeny. So this, I didn't know what to expect at all. I definitely did not expect a traditional xenomorph, but I didn't know what. And when they started to tease the visual, like just kind of show it in the shadows, it reminded me of some of the Harry Potter movies when there was like a specter of Voldemort hanging around.
Uh-huh.
Except it was much more, but Voldemort didn't scare me like that in those movies.
Mm-hmm.
This, even in the shadows, I was like, oh shit. This does not look good. This is gonna be upsetting to look at. Yeah. And this is why I love watching movies in a actual theater with other individuals sitting around me, because these are the moments I live for in going to the theater, which is when we had the full reveal of the Offspring, I believe it's called. The full reveal. I was in a packed IMAX with I think 400 and so souls. It was completely packed, and I was right in the middle. And when we had the full reveal of the Offspring, there was such an audible gasp.
Yes,
The
agreed.
entire audience, not just me, but everyone in unison went, I love when things when audience participation on that scale. I love when that happens in any movie I'm watching.
I absolutely agree 100%. It's like, when you see a comedy movie and everybody laughs at the same time, yes. or what you're talking about, like a horror movie and everybody gasps at the same time. I know exactly what you're talking about. That's excellent.
It was so good. It was so it's the most audible, most memorable audience gasp I can remember in my head, where so many people were really taken aback. I thought it was funny because I saw it with my sister, and after we got out, and at some point in this feed, I'll post her reaction to the movie. But I was asking, did you think it was scary? And she was like, no, it wasn't really scary. It was okay. And then I said, so is that why she wore a sweatshirt? Mm-hmm. And throughout 85% of the movie, her whole entire body was inside her sweatshirt, and she had the hood over, and she looked like Ziggy, like just the nose and eyes for 85%. I said, really, it wasn't scary? Is that why you were cocooned the whole movie? And she kind of forgot that that's what she did. But that is what she did. So she wasn't that scared, but she was in cocoon mode.
That's funny.
For almost the entire movie. So I thought she was digging it, and she really liked it too. But amazing. Another thing I like about The Offspring and its aesthetic is that it as opposed to Resurrection, there was some rhyme or reason to how it looked.
Yep.
And we had so many callbacks and allusions to other entries in the Alien canon. And up to this point, yes, they mentioned the black liquid. And when they first mentioned that, I was surprised because for some reason I felt like they weren't going to reference um, Prometheus or Covenant at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even with some type of tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
So just by mentioning the black goo, I was surprised. And then now they took it a step further, and you kind of see some of the visual imagery of one of the quote-unquote engineers crossed with a xenomorph. And I liked in my brain, that made sense to me somehow.
That like I said, the edge of my seat the whole movie, and I was waiting for him to mess up. Even at this point, before we saw the the hybrid child or whatnot, I thought that they had done well enough in terms of the callbacks and story making sense for Alien and Aliens. I said they have adhered well to that universe and to those stories and to the characters in that space. And given the varying opinions about Prometheus and Covenant, I was like, they're probably not even going to go there. This is of the old era. This is of that original series. A series of Alien movies. That's where they're going to stay.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But then for them, after all of this, to, in a way that makes sense visually and from the story-wise, distill out the black goo, the connection to the aliens and the humans, and what were they, the architects or whoever they were, they actually tied all of the stories and movies and lore together, not with exposition, not with some weird dream sequence or some lame mess like that. They really managed to, in the midst of the action, at the height of the fight scenes and what's going on, they gave you all of the history and connectivity between all of the movies, and it wasn't boring, and it made sense, and it didn't feel forced. That was really the true triumph of this movie. It was great as a standalone film. It was interesting as a respectful connection to Aliens and Alien. But then for them to go that extra step and actually rationally, plausibly connect it to the stories and the lore and the engineers, and I said that is amazing. That was really, like I said, anywhere else, in any other hands, it would have been exposition. It would have been, Rook telling us, well, and at some point in the future, it is possible that we could derive that. It didn't go that way, though. It really was neat and interesting and paced within the story scope.
Yeah, of course, I agree with you, Carl, on all of that you just said. Now, again, the people who, for whatever reason, don't like this movie, they use like the Force Awakens argument, which is it's just too much of a retread of the original, just done with modern effects, etc. I am not of that opinion. I mean, obviously I see the connections, but I don't think it's a simple retread. I obviously agree with you, but that's just what some of the naysayers say.
There are some very familiar beats. And like I said, I will say that broadly, the story doesn't break any new ground. I mean, we know this all makes sense. However, in the details and in the implementation, that is really where the surprises and where this movie shines. It's really doing a lot of work within something that we would have normally expected to be a formulaic framework.
Totally agree. Sean, thoughts on this?
I mostly thought it was great. I loved the fact that I went in only knowing that it was between Alien and Aliens. I saw the preview. I think I kind of forgot about it. By the way, it's a great preview. It's got the scene with the two guys there with the face hugger. And it's, they're doing the crab walk to get away from it. you think watching the trailer that, oh, they're giving away everything.
Finally.
They don't.
Nice.
And that's what's another thing that's really cool about this movie. But
Yep.
Thankfully, they don't.
people 2 years from now won't give a shit about
For
that.
people for me, like me, who are weirdos, it was still too much for me. But no, you're right. They still kept some big secrets.
Yeah. Yeah. One of them, of course, is Ash, and the other one is what's it called, Eric?
Andy, the Offspring.
No, the Offspring. The Offspring. Fuck me! When that thing appeared, I almost crapped my pants. I think I actually screamed, and somebody laughed at me in the theater because I was up there in the handicapped seats with my mom.
Yeah, because and maybe it's because I was on alcohol when I saw the previous two movies, but for those who saw, oh my gosh, what was that movie called? With oh my god, I can't even think of Amidala's name. Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman with all the mutations. I'm sure Carl knows the name of the movie. Natalie Portman and the 4-girl squad, and they go into the forest to investigate.
Oh, yes,
the anomaly.
Oh, the Netflix movie.
It was theatrical. It was
theatrical? Sorry.
Yes. I saw it twice at the movies, I think. I want to call it Evolution, but it's not called Evolution.
Yeah, I'm like, is it Annihilation? It's one of them.
It's
Annihilation.
weird, but it starts with a vowel. Like, it's...
Something like
I think
that.
it's Annihilation.
I'm going to...
Nice.
It's Annihilation. So there was a part in Annihilation, and I saw it twice in the movies, but I was buzz drunk both times. And there's a scene in that movie. Spoiler! Don't listen if you haven't seen Annihilation, because it's awesome if you've never seen it. But spoiler, there's this scene involving a bear, quote unquote. And when that happened, and I saw it with people in the theater, people were pretty freaked out by that bear in Annihilation. But maybe because I was under the influence, I was like laughing so much to myself. Not because I thought the bear was funny, but I was laughing at everybody else in the theater who was horrified by it. And then also in Hereditary, when it got to the end, Treehouse, etc., and Lady on the Ceiling, I too was under the influence of alcohol, and I was laughing my ass off while everybody else was getting creeped out of their minds. But in this movie, not under the influence. No, I was with everybody else. That was extremely unsettling and horrifying, and I love that. I wasn't ever scared in this movie, but that's how I am with most all horror movies. But that part, yeah, my eyes were in a bit of disbelief. And also, now this movie, unlike Covenant, has a lot of practical effects for creatures, etc., a lot more than you'd expect. And I kind of thought when we saw The Offspring in all its glory, I thought there was more CGI there than in actuality. Did you guys think about that? Did you know that The Offspring itself, when we see it full on, is largely all practical?
I did not realize it looked good. I didn't put it together what the nature of the effect was.
I would have thought that it was like plastic or something, and then I found out later that it's like a really fucking tall guy.
Yeah, what's crazy about the actor who is in the suit, which I did not think it was a guy in the suit at all when I was watching the movie, but it was. And what's crazy about him is I only recognized him, the real man, after the fact when I found out, was because I just saw him in a bunch of viral videos like on Facebook or Instagram a year or two ago, because he has whatever genetic thing, I mean, because there's more than one, I don't know which one he has, that makes you abnormally tall at a young age. Because when he's Eastern European, I believe, and when he was 11, he was like 6'6", playing basketball, of course. And that's when he was 11. He's 24 or something now.
Woo.
And he's 7'7". And if you see pictures of Robert Zixi, Bobroc.
Mm-hmm. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but if you see pictures of him as an actual man, physically, that is what his body looks like. Not as skinny, but that's physically what he looks like. And he was the man in the suit, and that's crazy. And I'm sure, probably in horror films or whatnot, he's going to be cast for more things in the future, like the actor who plays Saru in Star Trek Discovery. Obviously, he's starred in many other things besides that as creatures. So that was amazing, blew me away. For whatever reason, I'm just saying this because my sister said it, she liked the detail of, and I'm not trying to make a joke, but the way the quote-unquote genitalia looked of the offspring, because it was visually, obviously, non-binary, if you will. And she kind of took it as, because I remembered it looking like an X, but it's actually kind of like an upside down Y, sort of. But it worked, even though I thought it was an X, and she was like, no, it's a Y, upside down. It worked either way, because both of us were thinking that it was kind of like, because I was thinking of XY chromosomes, and apparently she was too. So, yeah. Because I was wondering what they were going to show. And see, I was afraid before we got the reveal, because there's two things that visually were a little over the top for me in this movie. One was the Weyland Yutani iconography. At first I thought, oh, this is cool. They're showing, the logos. But then it was so much. Even to the point where the sleep pods that they were trying to acquire were literally shaped like a W. That was a bit over the top, but whatever. So that was over the top. The other thing that was over the top, obviously, I love the Giger design, obviously. And you get in all the Alien movies, but I think especially in this one as well. There are so many phallic symbols throughout this entire movie that I was like, oh my God, if they show the nether regions of this offspring, it better not be like the phallus from hell. Because there was so many phalluses in this movie, I was afraid. And to just see like a little upside down Y,
well,
that was good.
They always have freakish biology in aliens movies. I'll just put it that way. The imagery is everywhere. So, yeah.
And I'm not sure what the opposite of phallus is. I'm not sure if it's vulvic, but there was a fair amount of that.
That's
too.
what I'm saying. It's always been that way in all the Alien movies. So they go there.
So, woo! Yeah, so, I feel like we're kind of getting to final thoughts, but overall, I enjoyed it, because as you guys have kind of already said, I thought it really worked. Like, you could just walk in and not know anything about the franchise, and that'd probably be the best way. To get the best, like, true experience, like, to go in without any of the baggage, actually, and then use this as a springboard to go back. That seems like it'd be pretty fun to me to do. But, of course, if you have seen everything, it paid off in other ways. And I love movies, because that's another balancing act that's difficult when you're sort of doing a quote-unquote soft reboot. I wouldn't call this that, but it's like a soft reboot. So I love that aspect. And I just liked it, as Carl has illustrated, just as being a competent movie. Yes, I had little quibbles here and there. A last quibble I had was the movie. I saw it IMAX. It was incredibly dark the entire movie on the colony, in the spaceship, everything in space, cargo bay, everything was incredibly dark. When I see the trailers on my phone or home monitor, it looks like it's normally lit. So I'm curious what this will look like at home when I can watch it in full again. That was another minor quibble. But overall, though, just that it was a competent, exciting, interesting movie, it was great. And that's why I said, for me, it may probably right now is my favorite post Aliens, even though I like all the other ones. So yeah.
Sean, what do you think? Closing?
You talked to me right when I took a sip of my drink. Okay, no, I think this is a superb movie. I think I said this in social media, but I think this is the most fun I had in a theater with a creature feature. Okay, qualify that creature feature since The Mist. Have either of you seen The Mist?
Oh, of course. That's I love The Mist.
I have not.
Oh, wow. It's good.
That is, yeah. Oh, Eric, that is a horror classic directed by Frank Darabont, based on the short novel by Stephen King.
Are we talking about the one that came out like around?
It's an older movie,
like
yeah.
2008.
Yeah, it's an older movie. Yes.
And oh god, I can't believe that. Yeah, you're right. It is an older movie. And I'm like 2008, an older movie. Yeah, but it's great. The Mist is great. It's about a bunch of people in a grocery store in a little Maine town, and the mist comes over.
I know the premise. I just haven't seen
and there's all these beasts in the mist. And that was, for me, I love James Bond movies and all that. But for me, watching innocent people in peril in like sort of like an Irwin Allen 70s disaster movie, I love that, especially when they put that into monster movie format, which they did with The Mist. And there's others before The Mist, like, the original The Thing from the 50s by Howard Hawks. But this piece of work, I think it does have some homage to old horror movies. So I'm going to give this a good review. What was it again, Eric?
What was what?
Are you talking about ratings? We haven't given the rating yet.
Oh no! What am I rating it out of?
Yeah, we haven't picked that yet.
Oh no, we haven't got there yet. We're gonna do that in a second. Before Carl sort of gives his final thoughts. Yes.
Oh, I thought this was.
Well, you're right. So we probably should have come up with it by now.
Shit.
You were right. Yeah.
You're right. I didn't do things the way I normally do, but.
Okay, so I know who to sue now. Thank you, Mr. Escamilla. Yes. You'll see my lawyer tomorrow.
But you reminded me, I think a lot of the merits that we've been talking about over and over must stem from the writer-director of this movie, Fede Alvarez. I believe, I don't want to say, good. I was going to say Mexican, but he's not from Mexico. He's from Uruguay originally. But I don't know if you looked into his filmography. It's not long, but he's mostly worked in the horror genre. Surprise, surprise. But I'm curious because Sean's probably seen at least a couple of these. And if I should check these out because I liked Alien Romulus so much. He did the 2013 Evil Dead.
Yes.
Director and writer.
Oh, wait, the 2013? Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That was actually his first feature. And then in 2022, he did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but he was not the director. He just helped with writing the story.
I don't care about that. I saw that. It's a piece of shit, but I'm not going to blame him. So, but I'm not going to, even if I didn't like that movie and he wrote it, or even if I didn't like that movie and he wrote the whole thing, I'm not going to cancel him.
No, I'm not saying cancel anybody, but it reminds me of, I think when I saw Harry Potter Part 3, Azkaban, I loved that movie so much that I had to find out more about Alfonso Cuarón. And when I did, I loved his movies and his movies he did after Prisoner of Azkaban. And, we've talked about the director whose name I can't pronounce who did The Revenant. But there's a lot of these Latin American movie makers who've just made some really good things for the American film market. And I feel like I need to investigate more of his works based upon this movie. And it's great if you watch the little bits of the conversation he had with Ridley Scott, who was producer on this movie. And you can tell this guy is a mega Alien Uber fan. And we saw the results of it. It worked out. in this case, because it doesn't always work out, even when longtime fans are involved. So I think probably most of the kudos goes to him for all these decisions that led to these things that we liked.
Yeah. Well, again, I was impressed by how competently made it was. This was a tight, clean, on the surface, simple story. On the surface, it is a tight, clean, simple story. And, it's getting harder and harder just to find films that are capable of doing that. So I'm really impressed with that. And of course, all of the fan service homage was right on point at every moment. But then again, to go that extra step, to manage to bridge all of the movies in a way that makes sense, to keep it paced and moving along, I was really impressed and just in shock. Like I said, I was on the edge of my seat because I was like, how are they going to mess this up? How are they going to mess this up? And the movie was over, and I was still on the edge of my seat. I was like, they did it. They stuck the landing on this. All right. I was really, really happy. I agree, Eric. It's definitely on par with 1 and 2. Probably, I'd say it's a tight number 3 after those two, and much, in my opinion, much preferred over any of the ones that came after 2. So after 38 years, I finally got to see my Aliens movie again. I finally got to go back to the world of Aliens that I really, really liked. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. For those who haven't seen Prey, even though it doesn't feel like a traditional Predator movie, that feels like a nice little revival for that franchise. Hopefully they can capitalize on that. I think there is going to be a Prey too. Yeah, I think that's going to be out. So you should check out Prey on Hulu if you haven't seen it. It's not Romulus, but it is a nice movie in its own way.
And again, see, and there's the thing. I enjoy Prey. I like Prey a lot. But you see, Prey is not Predator. And it is not, it doesn't feel like Predator other than a couple of, points that are in it. It's a different story that happens to have the Predator in it. This is Aliens, right? This is Aliens. And that is a remarkable thing to go back to. So,
yeah. And I know Caleb obviously isn't here. I wish he was, because I just know he wasn't the biggest fan of this movie. He didn't hate it, but he wasn't the biggest fan of Romulus. And I think, we haven't talked about it at length, but I think his reasoning would be something along the lines of he wants to see something more in the Alien universe and not what we've seen before. And I know he likes Prey a whole lot. So the way you just described Prey, Carl, I think that's the kind of Alien movie that Caleb wants.
And there's nothing wrong with that. If they complete the vision, I don't mind it being different, but you have to complete the vision. In my opinion, they never achieved that with any of the other ones. They never achieved.
Well, yeah, Caleb would probably agree with that too. Although I know Part 3 is probably his favorite outside of the first one. But anyway, unit of measure for this?
Handheld X-ray machine.
There's a bajillion things to choose from.
Android USBs.
Yeah, because I was almost going to say, I like the micro disc aesthetic. And the way it looks, because this movie, yes, it had a large budget for, let's say, an independent film, but it didn't have your typical blockbuster budget. This came in at 80 mil, which
that's good.
Is not a lot for, yeah. And so I bring this up because, when we see close-ups on some of the design elements, like the USB drive, you see the little disc. It reminds me of how future tech looked up close, like in Demolition Man or even Aliens, or what was the other one? AI. You could see it's for a movie, but it's not real. But in a weird way, because it doesn't look picture perfect, it is like tying into that aesthetic of the first two Alien movies.
Yep, it totally
Because of the imperfections.
it totally blends. Totally blend. I mean, look, we saw literal floppy drives on some of those computers, so there's an aesthetic they're trying to maintain that was pretty impressive. They got away with it.
Yeah, I love that. So fine, little synthetic USB updates. Out of 5, Sean.
I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. I love this. I thought it was great. It was organic. There was nothing in it that made me stop and say, ugh! Even though there was a lot of shit in there that should make me stop and say, ugh! So, yeah, that's what I'm going to give it.
All right.
I'd even give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah. If I was feeling better, I'd give you more, but I can't right now.
Okay. I'm thinking about it. I'm going to go ahead and give him a 5. I'm going to go ahead and give him. Yep.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
again, it is a triumph in 2 ways that I find very important. Modern movies, I like to be entertained. Give me something fun, make it interesting. I keep it moving. I like to be entertained, yet simultaneously, it manages to do big things. I mean, bridging all of the lore from all of the Aliens movies, no minor feat. And like I said, they managed to do it in a non, preachy, non, exposition-y way. That is really impressive, really surprising. So I'm giving them a 5 on this. Well done, folks.
Wow. I said in my cinema quickie, I'm somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5. But I'm not allowed to give like quarter ratings. And so I gave it a 4.5 already, even though it's kind of in the middle for me. But I'm still going to stick with 4.5, and I won't be able to update that until I get to see it again in full at home. But the reason I'm giving it a 4.5 and not a 4 are the same things that Carl just said. This is why I go to the movies, even if it's not my favorite movie in the whole world, and it doesn't matter to me what genre a movie is. I just want to be entertained. I want it to hold my attention. I want it to make me think about things outside of the obvious. And like Carl said, this did everything, all the above. So it was nice. I mean, I could watch anything that meets that criteria, no matter what it is on screen. So it's fantastic. I will say, lastly, about tech specs, because I have to. I was very surprised. I didn't intend to watch this in IMAX. It just happened because that was the best time slot. And the fact that I did, I'm glad I did. Even though, usually people like to go to, especially film buffs, like to go to IMAX movies when they know it's shot in IMAX. This movie was not shot in IMAX. Remarkably, it was originally intended to be a direct release streaming on Hulu, which boggles my mind. That is completely nuts. But okay, I saw it IMAX, and I know in recent years it's become regular practice to what they call optimize for IMAX. That's just take standard shot movies and engineer them to blow them up so that they seem right in the IMAX format. I was surprised that this movie from start to finish is the full IMAX ratio, which is 1.90 to 1, because a lot of people know, even non-cinephiles know, that when you see like a Christopher Nolan movie or whatever, IMAX, a lot of times you get that switch from big to narrow, big to narrow. And I don't mind that. Some people hate that. That's another conversation. But I was surprised, especially since it wasn't filmed at IMAX. They just went, boom, full IMAX, the whole movie. And even though it didn't have that type of clarity because it wasn't designed that way, it was worth it. It was worth it. Reminds me of when I saw the Game of Thrones season 4 finale, 2-parter. They had IMAX screenings, official IMAX screenings from HBO. And that's what this looked like, because it wasn't filmed in IMAX, Game of Thrones, but the same thing. It was awesome big. And so just make them all like this. I mean, the movies that they showed IMAX, I was very surprised because this was, again, was a relatively low budget movie, and it looked great. Aside from the darkness,
Nice.
It looked great. All right. Well, there you have it. That was Alien Romulus. Hoping there's going to be a continuation of this story in some form, not graphic novel, but on screen. Because if anyone's familiar with Alita Battle Angel, especially the animated version.
See, this is me just like crawling back because like he distracted himself.
No, but a lot of film buffs know Alita Battle Angel because it's one of the most famous, aside from Akira, of the genre. Carl, have you seen Battle Angel, the animated?
Of course. I got the manga. I've seen the animation.
Okay. Well, I saw a lot of elements of that story, at least that first opening, because, it's not the whole story of Battle Angel. But the whole opening of the Underdwellers trying to ascend to this place that's like Elysium.
Super robot found in the trash. Yes.
Yes, yeah. I saw a lot of elements. So just like the original Alita, where we never visually get to see the rest of the story, I hope we get to see the rest of the story, a continuation, because I would love to see whatever the place, the Elysium-like place they're trying to get to, I would love to see that. And they better not do a bait on switch like they did with Prometheus, because I was so excited for Covenant because I saw seeds planted in Prometheus, no pun intended, that I thought were going to pay off. And instead of zigging, Ridley Scott zagged. And Covenant is fine, but that's not what I was expecting. That's not what you set me up for. So that's why I was miffed about that. So please don't do that to me with this. And definitely don't do an Alien 3 and like everybody's dead when they get there. Don't do that garbage where Andy got eviscerated during transit. That would be the worst Alien callback ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There you go. And this is the 47th episode of Prognosis Negative. Hopefully we'll have more soon. Hopefully by now, whenever you hear this, 7% is in the bag for now. And we've gone on to other commentaries that we have planned. But I don't know when this is going to release, so we'll just have to wait and see. So closing out the show today, this is Eric.
This is Sean.
And this is Carl.
And until next time,
the balcony is yours.
Prognosis negative.
No, but Caleb had suggested, like, I don't know why I don't see the message here, because it's a weird title of a movie. It's a new movie, but it's French-Canadian. Oh, here it is. It's called Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person.
Had to look that one up, huh?
Oh, yeah. And it's a coming-of-age movie about, like, a young girl who's kind of like Wednesday in the newer series.
Mm-hmm.
I only got to watch the very beginning of it, and it came out in 2024, but it reminds me of early Tim Burton type stuff. Like, it has the way the family is and the different characters, and like how Edward Scissorhands and Pee-wee and Beetlejuice, like they feel like, yeah, it's our world, but it's not the real world. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, that's like definitely got that kind of vibe. And obviously it's about a young vampire in a vampire family in like a contemporary setting, but she's very against killing people to eat.
That has YA all over it. Just fucking smeared with RA honey.
It does, but again,
YA honey.
Don't picture a modern American movie version of that. You got to picture like an early Tim Burton version of that. I mean, aesthetically. So, yeah, I'm probably going to like it, but looks interesting.
Okay. Oh, Prometheus came in the mail for me today. I got an.
You bought it or what?
Yeah, after seeing this movie, I bought it. I mean, I wouldn't have bought it now, but I was on vacation and I was happy at my mom's house, and I bought it. There was a lot of downtime.
Have you seen Prometheus?
When it first came out, yes.
Okay.
And I think that it's unfairly maligned. And I remember liking it a lot more than most of like the podcasters that I hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to watching it again. And like I've never really heard anybody give a valid complaint about it, other than the scientists.
Well, I've heard some valid complaints.
Other than the two things. I said one thing, two things. Other than the scientist who touches the little creature and ends up paying for it, and then Charlize Theron doesn't know how circles roll. You know, and that's it. You know,
that part's unintentionally hilarious. But
Serpentine.
Okay. You're gonna make me a devil's advocate because me and Caleb.
Look, this is part of. We should be doing this. This is part of the episode. Let's just get to it. We can talk about Prometheus in the show.
Right.
Okay, that's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. You are correct, sir. Yes, you are very good, sir. Very smart.
I was gonna say that first, but then Carl beat me to the punch. Okay, hold on.
I've never seen The In-Laws. I know what that's from. I know what the scene, but it's
I have no idea what The In-Laws is.
Crime that I haven't seen that movie because I have a Columbo podcast.
Okay. Yes, he has to say Columbo at least 5 times every time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then he appears magically. You know the thing about alien Romulus.